I am Shauna Robbins, and I am founder and CEO of Third Spark Health. And let's see, I am a national board certified health and wellness coach and a sleep expert and a hormone health expert. And I've written two best-selling books, and I'm going to have a third book that's going to hopefully be out this year in May. So sleep is my swim lane, as they call it when you're writing. I'm also a writer for Authority Magazine. And sleep is like my jam, right? And it's not because I sleep great. It's actually because I went through years of horrible sleep. And that's what's kind of brought me to this point in my life. And this is why I like to talk about it. But there's lots of, unpeeling why people don't sleep it's like an onion, right? There's lots of different things. So 2 weeks ago, I did a talk on gut health and sleep. If you want to see a copy of that, let me know. I'm happy to email you the link on YouTube. And then in 2 weeks, I'll do a talk on hormones and sleep. And I'm just going to keep going, right? Because the more we can piece together the reasons why our sleep is interrupted. And of course, it's changing, right? It changes as our body changes. It changes as our stress levels change, our lifestyle changes, right? Our age changes. Like the body is so dynamic, it's always shifting. So it's important to understand kind of and have a tool. I call it your toolkit, right? You have your blueprint of who you are and what your body responds to, but then you have to have tools in your toolkit. And so that's what I'm going to try to offer you all today. So let me get started. And just save your questions till the end if you could. That would be helpful so that I can get through the presentation, and then let's definitely open it up to a roundtable to be discussed. All right. So welcome. Hopefully you guys all caught me 2 weeks ago on the gut health talk. And so you kind of know how the format is, but if you didn't, I want to welcome you all here. And today we're going to talk about adrenal health. And adrenal health is important because if your adrenal health is not up to par, you are not resilient when it comes to stress. And I don't know about you, but I think January has been one of the most stressful months that I've ever experienced. And I'm really, really grateful that tomorrow is the 31st. It's one of my close friends' birthdays, and I'm going to not only celebrate her for having that birthday, but also that this horrific month is over. So I think it's really appropriate that we are talking about adrenal health in such a stressful time in life. So today we're going to talk about this tired and wired feeling. It's a negative feedback loop between stress and cortisol and sleep. And I'm going to show you kind of how they all connect. And so hopefully it will make things clear for you, not only in maybe why you struggle with sleep at certain times, but also not to worry about it, right? Because sometimes we stress about the fact that we don't sleep. And then that makes more stress. And so we don't want to do that. We want to interrupt these negative feedback loops and start with more positive shifts and things. Hi, Patricia. I'm going to ask you to mute if you don't mind.
Oh.
Okay, so how well do you sleep, right? We always want to start with this. You should be sleeping 7 to 9 uninterrupted hours. But if you're not, just like we talked about 2 weeks ago, that maybe your gut might be impaired, maybe there's something in your adrenal glands that needs some tweaks. And it could just be that your adrenal glands are just completely running on fumes. Right? And we'll talk about what that means because a lot of that is overlooked in the medical community, especially when it comes to women. So in today's masterclass, we're going to cover how to reset, restack, and respark because that's how I teach, right? I teach how to reset healthy habits and things that you can do. And then we restack habits on top of habits you already have so that they're more sustainable, more successful, and then respark of pulling it all together so that you can actually like reignite yourself again and feel better. So first, we're going to cover what and where are your adrenals. A lot of people don't know this. The important jobs, there's multiple jobs of your adrenal glands. What is adrenal burnout and what it looks like, especially in women. Stress, cortisol, and sleep connection. Scientific studies that have been done on sleep. And lifestyle tips for improving your adrenal health and your sleep. And then practical takeaways and, like I said, Q&A at the end. Okay, so let's talk about adrenal health. So your adrenal glands are at the top of your kidneys. Hey, Libby, I'm going to mute you. Your adrenal glands are located on top of your kidneys. You have two, one on top of each kidney. And they are incredibly tiny, but incredibly mighty. So you want to remember this, right? When it comes to babying your adrenals. And they are crucial for creating hormones that do all these things, right? You manage your metabolism, manage your blood sugar levels, your inflammation levels, keeps you alive, right? Without these poor adrenal glands, we would not be alive and on the planet today. They regulate your heart rate. They regulate your sleep-wake cycle. They regulate your blood pressure and your sodium and potassium levels in your blood, your nerve function, your energy, your muscle mass, and your bone density. So you can only imagine by creating a lifestyle where you actually take care of your adrenal glands, whether or not you think you're in adrenal burnout or not, it doesn't really matter. You can see how much it would benefit not just your sleep, but your entire overall well-being. So let's talk about the main four adrenal hormones that are made by your adrenal glands. The first one is cortisol, right? Everybody seems to know this, right? It's always in the news. High cortisol is usually the main topic, talking about, high levels of inflammation, hypertension, visceral belly fat, right? Like high cortisol gets a whole lot of PR, but low cortisol doesn't get enough. And we'll talk about that. But cortisol in itself is a hormone that regulates your metabolism. It actually reduces inflammation and controls your body's sleep-wake cycle. And a lot of people think cortisol is the fight or flight, but it is not. It does these other more important things. And so taking care of your cortisol levels, and we'll talk about tips to do that, is really, really important when it comes to responding to stress and sleeping. So adrenaline and noradrenaline, those are your fight or flight hormones, right? The epinephrine and the norepinephrine. Those are the things that when you hear stories about like a woman lifting up a car so that she can pull her child out from underneath it, that's what does that. Or if you're, hiking and a mountain lion comes up to you, right? And you've got to get away, like this is what's going to save your life, not the cortisol. So there's a misnomer between those two. And then I always mispronounce this, the aldosterone. There we go, I got it. The aldosterone. Aldosterone is really, really important in maintaining your blood pressure and also balancing your sodium and potassium, which is really important for nerves and muscle function. So aldosterone is super important. And if your adrenal glands are not high functioning, that's going to really suffer. And your blood pressure, that's usually one of the first indications I see with women is that they have really low blood pressure. And that's because the adrenal glands are not producing enough of this aldosterone. And then of course, androgens, right? When women hear about androgens, you think of like women having male characteristics, right? Like facial hair or, PCOS or things like that. But what we're referring to, the androgens that are made in your adrenal glands, have to do mostly with your muscle mass and your bone density and also your overall energy levels. One of the reasons why you're so exhausted when your adrenals are burned out is because you don't have enough androgens. It's not your adrenals aren't making enough. So, again, as you can see, when your adrenals are in check, your body can handle so many things so much better, right? It can handle so many stressors more efficiently, and you can be way more productive and happier and have better mental clarity and better sleep and just be all the beautiful things that you need to be in this world and this world needs you to be. Okay, so adrenal burnout is also called HPA axis dysfunction. And it's important that you guys understand this because when you're not feeling well and you go in to see your doctor or your nurse practitioner or your naturopath or whoever, and you say, I just don't feel well. I'm tired all the time. I sleep all night. I wake up. It's like I can't wake up. I have brain fog, and you're going through all these things. Chances are they're going to be thinking or say, oh, this is HPA axis dysfunction. And you need to know what that means so that you can doctor speak, so that you can advocate for yourself. So HPA axis dysfunction is your hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal. So those three things, so the pituitary, the hypothalamus, and the adrenals all talk to each other all the time. And they're in this feedback loop. And that's for your survival. That's so that you can keep yourself safe. That's so that you can sleep. That's so that you can metabolize your food and use it correctly. All of these things have to happen. So if the brain perceives that there's a threat, it's going to signal the adrenal glands to make more adrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine, those hormones, right? When the brain sees that it's getting dark outside and it needs to start synthesizing melatonin, it's going to pull down cortisol levels, right? So that's your body, you have this beautiful body-mind connection. And I want you to realize that too, because so much of your mind, you can control what then happens in the body, the cascade of effects that happen, positive or negative, in your body. So when you're dealing with adrenal burnout or this HPA axis dysfunction, it could look like chronic fatigue, right? Where, like I said, you wake up in the morning and you feel like you didn't even sleep all night long and you're just exhausted and you're just trying to get through the day. You could have body aches and you could have general weakness. And a lot of women go from doctor to doctor and say, something's wrong with me. And they say, you're fine. Your blood work is fine. It's all in your mind, or you have fibromyalgia, or you have some sort of autoimmune disease, when in reality, what it really is here is this HPA axis dysfunction. Cravings for salty foods. I see this a lot with women whose adrenals are burned out. They get these cravings for salty crackers and chips and salty drinks like sodas. And, it's like they just can't get enough French fries and fried foods. And then, of course, that dysregulates the metabolism, right? And creates its own problem. But your body, your adrenal glands are looking for salt. And that's something that we're going to touch on as one of the tips that you can do to help heal your adrenal glands, is actually giving your body the salt that it wants and that it needs. It's very healing for the adrenal glands. Difficulty waking up or falling asleep has to do with cortisol levels actually spiking in the evening. And this can interfere with the sleep-wake cycle. And again, we'll talk about how good tips for having a healthy cortisol cycle coming up. But this is something that you could be dealing with if you are in adrenal burnout. Like I touched on already, low blood pressure. That's one of the first easy things that I see when women come to see me that have sleep problems. If they have low blood pressure, they stand up, they feel lightheaded, or they've been to their doctor and they know that their blood pressure is really low. That's usually an indication the adrenal glands are not high functioning. And then, of course, our old friend, menopause, right? So as soon as the ovaries stop functioning, don't you love that? Stop functioning. I had originally written close up shop. And then I decided that I would say, no, that's probably not very nice. We'll do stop functioning. But once that happens, and so your body's still making sex hormones, even though the ovaries are no longer producing eggs. But the job now of producing sex hormones is going to fall on the adrenals. And so you're still making some amount of estrogen and progesterone and hopefully a little bit of testosterone for your muscles. But the adrenals, they have to do it all. These poor little babies, right? And so if they weren't already like on the edge of a cliff, all of a sudden you hit perimenopause and menopause, and it's like they just fall right off the side. It's like the wheels just come off the bus. And that happens with a lot of women, which is why perimenopause becomes so challenging for them. And why they, a lot of women find that HRT is really helpful for them, because it just kind of alleviates this pressure off these overworked adrenals. So I always recommend that you get tested. It's very simple to get tested. You can just use a 5-point saliva test, and that can be ordered either by your doctor, your nurse practitioner, a health coach. I can order it. Many different people can order these. You do it at home. It's just a little vial. You spin in it and pop it in the freezer, and you do 5 of them throughout one day period, from the morning when you wake up until before you go to bed. And then within a week, you get a report back that shows a really beautiful graph. Sometimes it's not so beautiful. Sometimes it's subpar. But hopefully it's a really nice graph of how your cortisol levels work during the day, which gives us a lot of feedback as to what's going to happen with your sleep-wake cycles. And it also shows us if there's, some tweaks that need to be made, how we can best make those. So I definitely recommend that you get tested. So let's talk about adrenal burnout and sleep, this connection between the two, right? So as your adrenal glands become overworked due to chronic stress, and this is not acute stress, this is not like something happened immediately in your life. There was a car accident, or, you broke your leg, or somebody's gotten sick, or, a certain kind of acute stress, right? Even a sudden death in the family. This is chronic stress. This is long-term. This is months or years of chronic stress. It could be a relationship. It could be a job. It could be caregiving, a sick parent, or taking care of children, or whatever it is, right? This chronic stress is what wears down your adrenal glands. And what happens is the body actually gets to the point where it can no longer produce enough cortisol levels. And this is what I feel is not talked about enough. not in the media and not with women and not with women's health. And it's not talked about enough between women and their doctors as well, too. So when I see women that have sleep problems, this is generally one of the main reasons why they have this, is because they have these low cortisol levels, not too high, but low cortisol levels. So as we talked about in the beginning, low cortisol levels will disrupt your sleep-wake cycle. Why? Because normally cortisol has this natural rhythm that it follows. So it peaks in the morning. That's actually what wakes you up. If you wake up on your own without an alarm or without the sunlight, you're going to wake up when your cortisol levels start to peak up. And then gradually throughout the day, your cortisol levels are supposed to drop to kind of a modern rate, at midday. And then kind of in the early evening, they drop a little bit more. And then by 8 or 9 o'clock, they should be pretty low, right? And that triggers the body to start making melatonin. And this is how it's supposed to work. But when it gets dysregulated and the cortisol levels never rise and never drop, the body's like, well, we don't know when to wake up. We don't know when to go to sleep. We don't know when to start producing melatonin. And the whole system just kind of goes out of whack. So this low level of cortisol disrupts this beautiful, perfect cycle that your body wants to do and knows how to do. And we just have to get it back into that. And then, of course, when it doesn't drop naturally and your body doesn't make melatonin, right? People think, oh, well, I have low melatonin. I'm just going to take an over-the-counter melatonin gummy. Which only makes the problem 1,000 times worse, because what your body's looking for is cortisol. It's not looking for you to provide it with melatonin. It'll make plenty of melatonin on its own if it has the right cortisol pattern. The other thing that happens when you have low cortisol is that your adrenaline levels increase. Why? Well, your body has to live, and it has to, especially at nighttime, it has to be awake enough where if there's a fire or an earthquake or a tornado, you can get up and you can go, and you can grab your kids and your pets and you can get out the door and you can save your life. So the body is now stressed because it doesn't have enough cortisol. So it starts to overproduce adrenaline. And this is a fight or flight response that creates a real difficulty in falling asleep. This is what really leads to insomnia, right? Difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep. Also, if you have an Oura Ring or a Fitbit and you watch your nighttime heart rate, if it's elevated, the reason why it's elevated is you have too much adrenaline in your system, right? Because your cortisol levels are too low. And so that, of course, can lead to, nightmares, really graphic, horrible nightmares, and even panic attacks. I've worked with clients who wake up in the middle of the night in a complete panic attack. Their heart is pounding, they can't breathe, they're sweating, and it's just the most horrible thing for them. And they don't understand how they got to a panic attack in the middle of the night. This is how, right? The body's just overproducing adrenaline. And then, of course, something else that's, I think, really important with low cortisol levels is trauma, especially past trauma, childhood trauma. If you've ever taken an ACE test, ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. I have one in my book, Powerful Sleep. You can also find them online. It's really important to see what your ACE score is, to see where you are in healing any kind of childhood trauma that you might be carrying with you. Reason being is because that trauma lives in your cells. And that can dysregulate your cortisol level because your body doesn't feel safe, because those cells still have a memory of the trauma. And so this can have really long-lasting effects, not only on your mental health, but on your sleep. So it's really, really important that you work with a therapist or a specialist to really work on healing your past trauma, healing any PTSD you might be carrying, or even grief. Grief can do this as well. And without doing the psychological work on healing this, your body cannot restore its adrenal function to the way that it needs to, because it just doesn't feel safe. And it doesn't feel that any environment is going to be safe with this cellular memory of trauma. And then the last thing too, I see with low cortisol levels, especially with women, is caregiving. We all know that women are disproportionately likely to be the primary caregiver. It falls on our shoulders. A lot falls on our shoulders, but caregiving almost always falls on our shoulders with children, with aging parents, or with other family members that constantly need us and pull at us. And even if they're not living in our home or or calling us all the time, they're still in our minds, right? We're still worrying about them. We're still thinking about them and their well-being and what do they need and have they eaten and can they get to the doctor and what's going to come next, right? We're anticipating their needs, and that can create chronic stress over time that can really, really decimate your adrenal function. So I would say to make sure that you join a network or community so that you have social support, right? I know when my dad was fighting Alzheimer's for 12 years, it was really, really important for my mom and for all of us that were supporting him in the caregiving to reach out to the Alzheimer's Association and meet once a month with other caregivers that really understood what a challenge it was to not only watch somebody, you know, struggle with this disease, but also how we take care of ourselves in the process of taking care of somebody who has a chronic illness like that. And so if you've unfortunately been through that with somebody who's had cancer or, another illness, heart disease or something else, you know how important it is to have a network and a community around you to support you, even if it's just friends that you go out with, right? That you talk to, that you can share and you can unburden and you can feel seen and heard and supported. It's really, really important as women that we do this for each other. All right, so I put it kind of in this graph because people are different types of learners, and I think it's really important that they can see it. So obviously at the top is chronic stress, right? It's one of the worst things for your health that you can have is long-term stress. So what does this do to your actual body and what does this do to your sleep? You can see this cycle really clearly here, right? You're dealing with chronic stress. On one side, you're going to have restless sleep, you're going to have insomnia, you're going to struggle to fall asleep and stay asleep, and you're going to be sleeping under 7 hours, which is really detrimental to your energy, right? You have really low energy. You're tired all the time, which makes it really hard to exercise, which on the flip side gives you cravings for carbs and sugar because when you don't sleep well, right, your brain is looking for hits of glucose. And so it's going to give you these cravings for quick hits, right? The soda, candy, chocolate, whatever, carbs, bread, crackers, chips, right? You're just trying to get some glucose in the system so the brain can stay awake because it hasn't had the 7 hours it needs to clean itself and support itself, regenerate itself. And then, of course, if you're under chronic stress, right, a lot of us use alcohol as a crutch. So you're going to be over consuming alcohol. And in the United States, the Surgeon General has now come out to say that any more than 2 drinks a week causes cancer, and that we'll see if this happens, but that all alcohol in the United States will now be labeled with cancer labels. And so I'm actually all for that. I think it's great. I think it's really time that women develop different stress management tools besides drinking, whether it's a glass of wine or whatever, or 2 or 3. Every once in a while, I'm sure it won't have an impact on your health, but lots of women, when they come to me, the first thing I ask them is, how much wine do you drink in the evening when their sleep is disturbed? And sure enough, it's typically 2 to 4 glasses. And sleep is always a problem when there's alcohol, especially in the evening. So you can see how chronic stress creates this negative feedback loop. Then when you're consuming too much alcohol, too many carbs, too much sugar, it damages your gut. It damages your gut lining, which leads to weight problems, IBS, and reflux that come from poor gut or leaky gut. And then you go into your autoimmune diseases and your diabetes and your heart disease, right? And on the other side, when your sleep is impaired, you're looking at, mental health concerns of anxiety and panic attacks and depression. And then, of course, living with chronic fatigue and thyroid problems that come from lack of sleep. So it's not a good cycle. And anywhere that you can interrupt this cycle with anything that I give you today, where you can just say, yeah, starting today, I can make that one change. I want you to make it because it's going to make a really big difference in interrupting this negative feedback loop here. So these are the studies that we have so far on linking HPA axis dysfunction to poor sleep quality. In the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism in 2024, there was a study that looked specifically on how adrenal burnout disrupts sleep. And they found 2 things that I think are really interesting. One is that it highlighted disorders like insomnia and obstructive sleep apnea as associated with this HPA axis hyperactivity. So what we're looking at here is the fact that once your adrenal glands become either overactive or underactive, insomnia and obstructive sleep apnea become much more prevalent. And I have been, thank goodness for my podcast, I've been interviewing doctors about sleep apnea because it becomes very underdiagnosed in women, especially obstructive sleep apnea. Because when you go into your doctor and say you're not sleeping well, besides the fact that they'll give you a sleeping pill, they also want to tell you how there's no way you can have sleep apnea because you're thin, because you don't snore, all of these things, because your breathing is in moderate range. All that stuff is not true, right? It really affects women's bodies differently than it affects men's. And so there's not enough information on that. So I definitely want to make sure that you all understand that by healing your adrenal health, you will actually be able to heal things like insomnia and like obstructive sleep apnea. Though that's the best way to combat these two things. So that's why I found that study so interesting. The National Institute of Health 2024 talks about higher evening cortisol concentrations. So I found this one interesting as well too, that they're associated with lower amounts of REM sleep and increased wake time. So when women say to me that it's 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning and they're wide awake staring at the ceiling and their brain is on, this is because they had elevated cortisol levels in the evening that never dropped, right? And so, and of course, one of the ways that we have elevated cortisol levels in the evening is usually by what we watch on TV, what we're looking at on social media, right? Are we watching the news? What kind of environment we're in the evening. And so it's really important to be mindful of this. And when we do the tips, I'm definitely going to touch on this, but you need to think about your evening routine and what you do between dinner and bedtime and what you're putting in your brain and what you're watching and what you're thinking about and what you're looking at. You need to make these cortisol levels naturally drop so that you can sleep well at night. And you have to sometimes help your adrenal glands to get there. Older women, it was found that were not using estrogen replacement therapy when subjected to mild stress. So in this study, the women actually just sort of watched something on Netflix that was mildly disturbing. It wasn't super violent. It wasn't really intense. It was just sort of disturbing. Showed a much greater disturbance in sleep than women that were able to take estrogen replacement. So just know that even by the fact that your adrenal glands are making your sex hormones now after menopause, even just a slight little variation of stress in the evening can create a problem for your sleep if you're not using estrogen replacement. So again, be very protective of this evening time in your life. And in your lifestyle. And then the last one is this Irish Journal of Medical Sciences found that patients with adrenal insufficiency, which is low cortisol, reported poor sleep quality and increased wakefulness after sleep onset. So there it is. So your sleep is disturbed if cortisol levels are too high or cortisol levels are too low. It said even with cortisol replacement therapy, which is a thing, you can actually take hydrocortisone or you can take prednisone. I'm not a fan of either, but I understand that sometimes they are needed in a short-term situation to really help people that are struggling. But even with cortisol replacement, many patients still had major sleep disturbances. So again, the best way to help your sleep is to fix your adrenal glands naturally. So that's what we're going to talk about here today, this holistic approach to helping your adrenal glands repair themselves and heal themselves and restore themselves, which takes about 3 months. So if you really dive into a lot of these things and you do them consistently over the next 3 months, you're going to see a big effect on your adrenal glands. So let's talk about resetting your diet. Number one, you must eat, right? I mean, I'm all for intermittent fasting. I think for a lot of women, it makes sense, but not if you're in adrenal fatigue. You have to eat solid meals and you have to eat every 3 to 4 hours, especially breakfast. If you want to be done eating at 7 o'clock at night, great. But at 7 o'clock in the morning, I want you to eat and I want you to have some protein. The reason being is because your adrenal glands love, love, love protein. They love it. So that's why the next one is 100 to 120 grams of high quality protein. This is not a bar, right? This is not 1 scoop of protein powder. This is not 1 egg. By the way, an egg only has 4 grams of protein. It's not very much, right? So many women are like, I had a hard-boiled egg for breakfast. That's not going to cut it when you are trying to heal your adrenal glands. You also need to eliminate caffeine, right? No coffee in the morning. No, 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 no. You have to get off coffee if you want to help your adrenal glands. And if that means you're going to hang up right now, That's fine. You can hang up, but just know that when you get to the point where you're really, really needing to fix your sleep and you really want to feel better, you're going to have to take coffee out of your diet, even just 1 cup. It's sometimes it's too much. It takes your adrenal glands and it just sends them to the moon, and they just don't have the energy to do that. And then, of course, you always want to eliminate tobacco. And if you can eliminate alcohol, you're doing your body a huge, huge favor. It's so much better to switch to herbal tea or to bone broth in the morning. And I have a lot of clients that do that, and they feel so much better within a few weeks of making those changes. You also want to take a methylated B vitamin complex. Methylated because not every person can break down B vitamins. And when you take a methylated form, they've already been broken down for you, so you can absorb them better. And omega-3s. The adrenal glands also love fish, especially cold water fish, and not everybody wants to eat it or can eat it. So making sure that you take omega-3s, and a lot of them, like between 2,000 and 2,500 IUs a day, will really help your adrenal glands. And then, of course, 1 tablespoon of sea salt, and good quality sea salt. Or the electrolytes. The brand that I like is the LMNT. I'm not sponsored by them, and they're just the ones that I use. And I think they have the least amount of junk in them, and sugar and natural flavors and all that crap that's in everything. Have, some electrolytes, or have a tablespoon of sea salt in your water, 12 ounces first thing in the morning. It's so healing for your adrenal glands and very, very supportive for them. All right, so let's look at the healthy habits that you already probably have. I'm assuming all of you here are doing some of these things anyway, and let's see if we can level those up. That's what I call restacking healthier habits. We're just going to stack new ones right on top of the ones that are already easy for you, so they become sustainable and successful. So hopefully all of you are exercising 5-6 days a week. But what I want you to do is shift your exercise into something that's more moderate, right? So when your adrenal glands are struggling and your sleep is struggling, you don't need to be, riding 40 miles on a road bike, or rocking up a mountain with, rocks in your backpack, or doing high intensity interval trainings, or jogging for 10 miles, or running ultra marathons. You just need to do some nice yin yoga, do some resistance training like TRX or Pilates, or even just, resistance bands, coils. You can walk, right? Just walk. If you want to put a weighted vest on for bone health, great. I love it. But just walk. And you don't have to walk like massive hills or 10 miles hiking. Just move your body and breathe and relax. That's what you want, is just to get that cardiovascular, but not in a way that's stressful to the system. And then, of course, swimming is great. And stretching is really great. It's a wonderful thing to do. And it's very, very healing to your adrenal glands. Stress management is, of course, incredibly important, because when you're under chronic stress, right, the way that you handle your stress is really important. So you need to have some sort of practices that you do every single day for 20 minutes, ideally. And you want to do them during the day. That's when it's most important, to help alleviate your stress during the day, so it never really gets so sky high that you can't bring it down at night. So, that's looking like mindfulness, yoga, meditation. If you don't like any of those, even just deep breathing, right? Find a breathing that you like, whether it's box breathing, whether it's the yoga breathing, that's the 4-7-8 breathing, called the ocean breathing. It doesn't really matter, just as long as it's something that chills you out. So I had a client ask me, what do you think about Wim Hof and like Kundalini breathing? And I'm like, that's great, but not when you're in adrenal fatigue, right? Because it's too intense for the body. What we want to do is create a supportive, nurturing environment for the body to bring stress levels down, because there's already so much stress around us. Getting morning sunlight is really important. Not only, it's important for your sleep, but it's important because it helps your cortisol levels rise in the morning. And so that sets you on a really good path for this sleep-wake cycle that you have to do, where your cortisol levels need to come up, so then they can slowly drop over the day and then down into the evening. And when you go outside, or you sit in a sunny window for 10 minutes every morning, you do that through your eyes, your brain is able to go, oh, wait, here we are. It's morning time. It's time to wake up. It's time to naturally boost our cortisol levels. And so it's helpful for the system. And then it knows 12 hours from when it gets that sunlight in your eyes, that's when it's going to start making melatonin. So you literally set the switch in your brain so that your body knows exactly when it needs to start making melatonin. So get your morning sunlight, super, super important. And then, of course, sleep hygiene, right? You want to make sure you go to bed and wake up at the same time, as close as you possibly can. It's really important to have that consistent schedule. You do not want to nap during the daytime. That's usually a sign that you need to get more sleep at night, not during the day, because your brain's not getting what it needs when you're napping. And you want to create this relaxing bedtime routine that we talked about, right? You really want to protect your mental health, your well-being, your stress level. You want to come down in the evening, right? You don't want to have any food or drinks 3 hours before bed, because if you're digesting, you're not resting. Digestion takes a lot of effort. All right. So keep that in mind as well, too. Finally, we're going to respark your adrenal health. So these are some things that hopefully are easy adds into your diet. If you can only pick one or two of these things, great. If you can do all of them, amazing. But don't feel like you have to just like up and throw away everything that's in your pantry, or next time you go to the store, you can't buy your favorite things. But these are things to really focus on, right? Like I talked about, cold water fish 3 times a week. That's your wild caught salmon, your mackerel, your sardines, your herring, and your anchovies. If you don't like those or you can't find those, it's fine to take an omega-3 supplement. Grass-fed beef is wonderful. Pastured chicken, beef liver, that's something we don't typically eat anymore. I know my grandparents always used to eat beef liver. It's really high in B vitamins, which is really helpful for your adrenal glands. But if you need to take a supplement, not eat beef liver, I get it. It's not my favorite either. Organic tofu is wonderful. Just make sure that it's GMO free. And of course, eggs and nuts, right? I love nuts. Some other non or low caffeinated or non-caffeinated things that you can look at having in the morning instead of having coffee, or in the afternoon, if you might crave an afternoon coffee, would be a yerba mate or a matcha green tea, of course, unsweetened. You don't want to go to Starbucks because they put like 30 grams of sugar in theirs. It's like worse than having a Snickers candy bar. So you always want to ask for your matcha green tea unsweetened. And same for the yerba mates. If you're going to buy them at the grocery store, make sure you buy the unsweetened ones. Mushroom coffee. I have so many clients that love mushroom coffee, and then I have clients that don't like mushroom coffee, and it gives them migraines. So this is really about you and what makes your body feel good, and what you like. And sometimes you might have to experiment a little bit to see if you can find that. And then my favorite is dandelion tea. And if you have not ever seen that, you might want to try it. It has all different flavors. There's vanilla nut, there's hazelnut, there's a bunch of different things. And I like dandelion tea because it looks like coffee. So when I make it in my coffee mug and it's brown like coffee, and I could put a little bit of almond milk in it, I basically feel like I'm drinking a cup of coffee, even though I'm not. So my brain doesn't really notice that I'm not having coffee, but my adrenal glands notice because they don't get overly activated in the morning. And I have a much better day, and I'm much more productive, and my energy is better, and my sleep is better. Dark colored foods. I love this. I love that the adrenal glands respond really well to dark colored foods. You know, dark colored foods tend to have a lot of polyphenols in them. And if you were on my gut health masterclass I did 2 weeks ago, you know how important polyphenols are at feeding your microbiome. So dark colored foods look like beets, black beans, blackberries, wild blueberries, which are the little teeny tiny ones. And sometimes you can only find them in the freezer section, or at least I can only find them in California in the freezer section. They grow kind of on the eastern part of the United States and eastern Canada. Black lentils and black rice. And if you've never tried black rice, it's also called forbidden rice. It was the rice that was actually saved for the emperors in China because it has the most amount of polyphenols and antioxidants. That's what I recommend that you should be focusing on eating for your adrenal glands. And then, of course, my favorite, avocados. I have an avocado addiction because they're full of healthy fats and fibers, and walnuts and chia seeds. And then kelp and bone broth are great for trace minerals. And bitter greens. I was surprised with the bitter greens, but once I started incorporating them into my diet, I really, really saw a difference in my adrenal health. Like within a few days, I started to feel so much better. And that's your collard greens and your dandelion greens. Even arugula is a bitter green. I really, really like that. And then celery. Celery is a great snack. It's full of sodium and it's so good for you. You can juice it and have it in the morning or in the afternoon. or you can eat it as a snack with some homemade hummus. It's just a great thing to incorporate into your diet, and it's really, really helpful for your adrenals. All right, let's see how we're doing on time. Oh, we're good. We're almost there. Okay, so here are some supplements. Obviously, I always want you to consult with your doctor before you start any new supplements. Really important to make sure that there's nothing that crisscrosses between what you might already be taking or any kind of allergies you might have. But these are ways to support and help heal adrenal burnout. So, like I said, your methylated B complex, you want to take those every single day. Vitamin D, it's really important that your vitamin D levels are up between 60 and 90 for your adrenals to have what they need. My two favorite magnesiums for adrenal burnout are both malate and glycinate. So if you're looking to heal your adrenals, that's the magnesium that you should be taking before you go to bed at night. It'll also help you sleep. It'll also, help with many other things like collagen production, and glycinate helps with your blood pressure. And there's lots of other wonderful things. Magnesium is a trace mineral that used to be in our topsoil, but now it's just completely decimated. So there's really not a lot of great ways to get magnesium anymore. So it's good to supplement it. Trace minerals are also really important for your adrenals. And sometimes you have to buy just a little liquid and take a couple of drops of trace minerals every single day. Because again, it used to be in our food supply, no longer there. So there's really not a great way to get trace minerals unless you're eating a lot of sea vegetables, like nori and different kinds of like Japanese style sea vegetables. And that's not typically part of our standard American diet. But if you're eating those, amazing. And then we touched on omega-3s, both with EPA and DHA in them. And then we have adaptogens and herbs. So these are some of my favorites. Adaptogens, if you don't know, are time-tested ancient wisdom in adaptogens. They're typically roots or plants or herbs that give the body what it needs. So if your adrenal glands are overproducing cortisol, it's going to chill them down. Or if they're underproducing cortisol, it's going to help them build up more cortisol in the system. So they're just really nice balancing regulators. Ashwagandha is also known as Indian ginseng. It's been used in India for thousands of years to help with stress and sleep. If you haven't tried it, I definitely recommend that you talk to a doctor and see if it's something that you might be able to try. Maca is a root from Peru. It's really helpful at stabilizing your hormones, especially if you're in perimenopause. Maca is really, really helpful at that, which is, helps to alleviate the stress on the adrenal glands. Valerian root extract, you can either take it in a tincture or a tea. Valerian root is also very helpful at supporting the adrenal glands at whatever they need. Same with reishi mushroom. And then, of course, my favorite, holy basil. It's also called tulsi. I drink it in a tea form, but you can also have it in a tincture. Holy basil is a basil plant. It's an Indian basil plant, and it's just really, really amazing. It's full of L-theanine, and it's just really supportive to the adrenal glands and to the system. So the next piece of this is ways to change your mindset around stress, right? Because if we perceive something to be stressful, then the body goes into this fight or flight, hypervigilant type of response, right? It's this whole HPA axis dysfunction, or the HPA axis in general. So the journal prompts that you can do that will help to reframe stress for you is really going to help at allowing your body to calm down. And so I want you, you'll get a copy of this so you can go back and rewatch it again. But I want you to really sit and be mindful and take the time to write in a journal or on a piece of paper what drains your energy. Become really clear as to what that is. Is it your work? Is it your partner? Is it your mother? Is it, your neighbor? I mean, what is it that's actually in your life draining your energy the most and creating the most amount of stress for you? And then I also want you to write ways that you recharge yourself so that you know what you can go to when you hit a stressful time, because what's going to work for you is not going to work for somebody else. And the only way to get to know what works for you is to really make a list of things. Maybe it's walking in nature. Maybe it's watching your favorite movie. Maybe it's cooking, right? Like maybe it's gardening. Maybe it's knitting, maybe it's listening to music. But as long as you know what recharges you, then you have a game plan for dealing with stress so that your adrenal glands don't have to take the hit every single time. Then, of course, the big question for women is, how can you ask for help? and how can you delegate, right? Make a list of people you can ask for help and people you can delegate to, and do it, right? That's like one of the best things that you can do for yourself. Louise Hayes has a great quote that I love that says, "A no for you is a yes for me." And so it's always really important to be able to say no so that you can say yes to yourself. And sometimes that means you say, "No, I can't take that on, but I have somebody over here who can," and you hand it to them, right? Or, "No, I can't do that for you right now, but I'd be happy to help you with it next week when I have more space in my calendar," right? It's really important to have these boundaries and be honest and ask for things and delegate them out. And then, of course, I downloaded Mel Robbins's book last night, Let Them. Very interesting book, easy concept to understand. Can you let things go, right? Can you let them? Can you let them make mistakes, right? Your children, your parents, your friends. Can you let them, live with the consequences of their actions? Can you let them not bother you? Can you let their opinion of what they think of you not affect you in a negative way or in a stressful way, right? What are the things that you can let go of and just let them have whatever it is that they're going to have? I think that that's really compelling for women, and I really encourage you to take a really good look at what you can let go of. And then the final thing is, I was doing an interview this week for my podcast with this health coach in Massachusetts, and she told me this, and I love this trick, and I wanted to share with all of you. It's called structured worry time. And I think it's so important that, especially as women, we have so many things up here in our brains that we're thinking about. We have the things that we're doing, right? Because we have these spiderweb brains where we can connect all these dots at one time, and we can multitask, and we can, be successful at all these different things. But what that does is it means that we never rest, right? Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, we never rest. We're always on. And so there's a lot of worries that we have that kind of get caught up in our mind that maybe we don't pay attention to during the day because we're so busy just getting through the list and getting things done. But if you carve out 20 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is that you need to sit down and actually think about the stuff that you're worried about, actually really get in touch with it from a physical, mind, body, spirit point of view, and let it come out and put it down on paper, and then take that piece of paper and write your list of all of the things that you're worried about, and then have 2 or 3 other categories. So the next category is going to be, is there anything I can do to fix this worry? Yes or no? Is it in my control? Is it out of my control? If it's out of your control, take it off the list. If it's in your control, right? Yes, there's something I can do about it. Then, of course, the next line over in the next category is, what's one step? Just one thing you can do with this one worry, right? If you need to find a new job, is that, updating your LinkedIn bio? Is that working on your resume? Is that, being honest with yourself of the fact that maybe you are unhappy with your work, even though, you're scared to not have a job? Like, what is that one thing that you can do? For some people, it's just responding to one email, right? Of something that you can do to move the project forward that makes you feel better. And then, of course, the final column is the timeline. When are you going to get this one thing done? Is it going to be today? Is it going to be tonight before you go to bed? Is it going to be by the end of the week? Is it going to be by the end of the month? But you put the time frame down, and then it's done. Right? You know what you need to do, and you know the time frame that you need to do it in. So I promise you, if you can work on the mental mindset aspect of it, you're really going to be able to support your adrenal health much better. All right, so here are our 7 key takeaways. Chronic stress depletes your adrenal function and disrupts the entire system, right? Your body, mind, and your sleep, and your spirit. All of it together gets disrupted with chronic stress. Some of the best ways to heal your adrenals are with 7 or more hours of sleep, with moderate daily exercise, eating regular meals, and making sure that you're getting enough protein, 100 plus grams of protein per day, right? Really important for your adrenal health. You want to eliminate or avoid all processed foods, soda, caffeine, alcohol, and smoking. And you want to have a really relaxing bedtime routine, right? It could be a shower, could be a bath, could be a book, could be music, whatever it is, but you don't want to watch TV. You don't want to watch the news, and you don't want to scroll through social media. I can tell you that, especially at nighttime, because that you want to make sure that you let your cortisol stay low. at night so that you can fall asleep and your body can make enough melatonin. You want to be able to let your mind and body relax and feel safe. That's what's most important, right? You want to feel safe. You want to use a relaxation technique like breath work or meditation or yoga throughout the day. Just 20 minutes is enough. Even 10 minutes is enough. Anywhere in there is great. You want to get 10 minutes of morning sunlight in the morning to set that timer in your brain so that your brain knows 12 hours from that time, it's going to start making melatonin. That's going to go a long way at helping to regulate your cortisol and your sleep-wake cycle. And then, of course, you want to drink 1 tablespoon of salt or some electrolytes in 8 to 12 ounces of water upon waking up. You want to rehydrate yourself and you want to put some sodium and electrolytes into your system. All right, so that's what I have for you. So I wanted to tell you a little bit, if you're interested in learning more, this is my community that I run. We get together twice a week and I have an e-learning academy. I do these power hours in the group once a month. And it's called the Third Spark Community. And these are some things that people have said in my community that I wanted to share with you. You know, sleeping better than I have in years, really being on top of their game when it comes to work, really feeling like they're physically fit and healthy and they can take on new challenges, connecting with other women that they might not have met any other way, right? And meeting them in this Third Spark community and having like-minded women is really, really empowering. And then, of course, being really empowered when it comes to dealing with your doctor, right? Knowing the questions to ask, knowing what blood work to recommend or request even, having educated conversations and being able to advocate for yourself is really, really important. So this is a unique membership-based community. It was built by myself and a team of women. And so it's built by women for women. And I hope that you can join us. It's only $97 a month, so easy peasy, and you can join or cancel at any time. And here's actually some recommendations and testimonials from clients. One of them, Libby, is actually here tonight. So as you can see, my clients become friends too, and my friends become clients, and that's just the best way to do it. Libby and I worked together for 6 months and we had an amazing 6 months together. She made so many incredible changes and I was so proud of all the work that she did. So anyway, this is what I have for you. So this is how you can reach me, the Third Spark Community. Here's a code for a free month. If you just want to come give it a try, give it a whirl and see what you think. Thirdsparkhealth.com is the website, so you can go check it out. There is my email, my personal email. So feel free to help yourself. If you have any questions or need any follow-up, let me know. My podcast is on YouTube. It's underneath my name, Shauna Robbins. You can find me there. And on social media, you can follow me on Third Spark Health. So now I want to jump in and see if there are any questions. Let's see. I see a whole bunch in the chat. Let's see what we have going on here that you ladies are all chatting about that I didn't get to see. Okay, feel free to unmute yourself if you guys want to jump in and join and ask.
Oh my God, I've been trying to unmute myself forever. Jeez, I was like, where is the unmute button? Anyway, thank you, Shauna. Oh my goodness. As I'm sipping a glass of red wine, I'm like, oh my God, I'm turning my camera off. But anyway.
It's all right. You could have left it on. I wouldn't have wine shamed you, you know.
Anyway, we worked together for 6 months, and what I loved is what happened tonight is what happened in our coaching, that there was a lot of medical stuff that took me a while to understand, but you also coached me on, stuff with my mother or stuff that was going on in my life and how that was affecting me. And so I think that's a beautiful part about you, is that you're scientific and also personal. And in Canada, you began to understand the system that we live under. That's different, but I was still able to get blood work finally requested after I told my doctor you weren't my doctor and you weren't replacing her, because she was all mad. And now I see a Chinese medicine acupuncturist like once a week who's made a huge difference in my life. So anyway, thank you. You helped me make a lot of important changes.
Oh, thanks, Libby. I appreciate that. So I'm scrolling through the chat and I'm seeing here that Jen is a black walnut farmer. Jen, that's so awesome. And I'm so glad that you were here because black walnuts are amazing. And I should have specifically said that. Not only are walnuts incredible, but black walnuts are amazing.
Indeed, they are, yes.
Yeah. So what about black walnut oil? Do you make that as well?
We don't make it for sale. No, my son bought a press and we have yet to really get into that, but you need a pretty high volume of nuts to produce oil. And right now, we'll probably have about maybe 60 or 70 trees of about 1,728. So our volume, I'm sure, in the next 5 years will increase greatly. But we've been at it, I think, this is our sixth harvest season. So, yeah.
Well, I can't wait to connect with you and see if I can get some of your walnuts. That sounds amazing. All
Well,
right.
Libby's had them.
Yeah. Oh, good. Good, good. I'll have to get them. Maybe she can send me some.
There you go.
So does anybody have any questions? Anything I can answer while you have me here? Nothing? I covered everything perfectly. I don't need to close any loops. I find that so hard to believe.
No, but it's a lot, right? So I'm gonna personally have to listen to it again. And there were probably 8 women who wanted to come tonight, but I said to them, just register and they'll get the recording.
Yeah,
Is
of
that
course.
true? Or can
Yes.
I send it to them?
No, absolutely. Either
Okay.
one. You can send it to them, or I'll send this out once I put it up on YouTube. I'll send it out to every single person that was registered for this. So yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's super. All right, great. Well, I'm really happy that everybody hopefully got at least 1 or 2 takeaways that they could make some changes today, because the more you can help to improve your adrenal health, the better you can manage just about anything in your life better. So, including your sleep. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining me. It was nice to see you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Ciao.
Bye.